My name's Ethan Walsh, and I'm 23 now, but when I was 17, something happened that I still can't quite wrap my head around. It's the kind of thing you don't tell many folks because they either think you're lying or they just get real quiet and change the subject. I've only shared it with a couple of buddies, and even then, it didn't land right. So here I am, spilling it to strangers online, hoping maybe someone gets it. This all went down 6 years ago, back when I was just a regular kid, not some troublemaker or anything, just your average teenager who maybe mouthed off now and then. My dad, Frank, was the type who thought life was a test you had to pass with gritted teeth. He'd call me lazy if I didn't want to mow the lawn in a heat wave or if I complained about splitting logs for hours. My mom, Diane, she just followed his lead, never really pushing back. My younger brother, Lucas, was 13, always glued to his video games, barely noticing the world around him. It started with this camping trip. Dad had been dropping hints for weeks, saying things like, "You need to learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet." I figured it was just his usual tough guy talk, nothing new. But at dinner one night, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Hope you're ready to face the real world, Ethan." I just shrugged it off, thinking he was being dramatic. Mom didn't say much, just kept stirring her coffee. Lucas was too busy playing some mobile game to care. The day of the trip, we piled into Dad's old pickup and drove 3 hours to a state park, some nowhere spot called Pine Hollow. It wasn't a proper campground, just a clearing with a fire pit, a rickety picnic table, and a porta-potty that smelled like death. The drive was quiet, except for Lucas's game blaring tinny music. I tried cracking a joke, but Dad just stared at the road, and Mom was lost in a crossword puzzle. It felt off, like they were all in on something I wasn't. We got there, set up the tent, and Dad was on my case the whole time, barking orders like I was a soldier in boot camp. I was hauling bags, hammering stakes, and he's still grumbling about how I'm not doing it right. By the time we got the fire going, Lucas was gaming, Mom was flipping through a magazine, and Dad was watching me like a hawk, waiting for me to slip up. It was tense, not like any camping trip we'd done before. The next morning, Dad woke me up at dawn, shoving a rusty axe into my hands. "Go get us some firewood," he said. "Not the junk by the trail. Go deep, find something worth burning." I was groggy, but I didn't argue. I headed out, wandering past the marked paths, looking for decent branches. It took me about an hour, maybe more, hacking at some fallen logs and piling up what I could carry. No phone signal out there, just me and the woods. When I started back, arms full of wood, I heard voices near the campsite. I slowed down, not sure why, and caught my name. Behind a cluster of pines, I heard Dad's voice, low and serious. "If he's gonna make it, he'll find a way." Mom's voice came next, soft, nervous. "Frank, are you sure this is okay?" Dad snapped back. "My pops did it to me. It's how you learn. He'll be fine." Lucas mumbled something, but I couldn't make it out, just his usual bored tone. I stood there, heart pounding, thinking, what the hell is this? I stepped into the clearing, and they all froze. Mom looked at the ground. Dad just crossed his arms. Lucas wouldn't meet my eyes. I dropped the firewood and asked, "What's going on?" Dad looked at me, calm as anything, and said, "You're on your own now, Ethan. Time to grow up." Then he started breaking down the tent. I stood there in the clearing, firewood scattered at my feet, watching my dad, Frank, tear down the tent like it was just another chore. My brain couldn't catch up. I thought maybe this was some kind of prank, like he was trying to scare me straight or something. I grabbed my backpack, but Dad stepped in front of me, his face hard. "You don't need that," he said. "You got what you need in your head." My mom, Diane, started to say something, her voice shaky, but Dad cut her off. "Get in the truck, Diane." My little brother, Lucas, just stood there, clutching his phone, not looking at me. I saw Mom slip a protein bar into my hoodie pocket, but Dad barked at her again, and she dropped her hand like she'd been caught stealing. I snatched the bar off the ground, my hands shaking. "You can't just leave me here," I said, my voice louder than I meant. Dad turned, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "You'll figure it out, Ethan. That's what men do." Then he slammed the tailgate shut. I watched them pile into the truck. Mom's face was wet with tears, but she wouldn't look at me. Lucas had his earbuds in, staring at his lap. Dad didn't even glance back. The engine roared, and they drove off, dust kicking up behind them. I stood frozen, waiting for the truck to turn around, for this to be some sick joke. But the sound of the engine faded, and it was just me and the pines. I checked my phone, 2% battery, no signal. I tried calling anyway, but it was pointless. I had $12 in my wallet, a lighter, that protein bar, and the rusty axe Dad gave me. That was it. I walked back to the trailhead, thinking maybe they'd parked just out of sight, but the lot was empty. No cars, no people, just gravel and trees. I sat on a stump, my stomach twisting. Part of me was mad, but mostly I was just confused, like I'd woken up in someone else's life. I waited an hour, maybe 2, hoping they'd come back. Nothing. The sun was getting lower, and the air turned chilly. I tried retracing the trail to the campsite, but I got turned around. All the trees looked the same, and I wasn't exactly a Boy Scout. I'd never been out in the woods alone before. By dusk, I was cold and hungry, so I found a spot under a big pine, curled up in my hoodie, and tried to sleep. Every snap of a twig made my heart race, but I kept telling myself I'd be fine. I was more annoyed than scared, like, really, Dad? This is your big plan to make me a man? The next day, I ate half the protein bar, saving the rest. I followed trail markers, but they just looped back to nowhere. I shouted for help a few times, but my voice just echoed. I drank from a creek, hoping it wouldn't make me sick. By the second day, the bar was gone, and my stomach was growling. I kept moving, but I had no clue where I was. On day 3, I was starving, tired, and starting to get it. This wasn't a game. Dad's words kept playing in my head. My pops did it to me. I remembered him talking about his old man, how he'd leave him in tough spots to build character. But this felt like he just wanted me gone. I started wondering if Mom even fought for me, or if she just went along like always. Lucas, too. He didn't even say goodbye. By day 4, I was weak, my legs heavy. I heard voices and stumbled toward them, finding a couple of hikers. They looked at me like I was a ghost, dirty, wild-eyed, clutching that axe. I told them my family ditched me, and they exchanged glances, like, is this guy for real? They gave me water, walked me to a ranger station. I gave the rangers my parents' number, but no one answered. They called my uncle, Ray, who lived a couple hours away. He showed up, barely said a word, just drove me to his place. He made me a burger, told me to crash on his couch. The next day, he said my parents were taking a break, and I should stay with him for a while. I asked if they'd called. He just shook his head. I tried their numbers again. Nothing. After a week, I stopped trying. That was it. I didn't hear from them for 6 years. After my family left me in Pine Hollow, I stayed with my Uncle Ray for a while. He wasn't much for talking, just let me eat his food and sleep on his couch. I kept expecting my parents to call, to show up, to say it was all a mistake, but weeks turned into months, and nothing. I was 17, still a kid, but I had to grow up fast. Ray said my parents were sorting things out, but he didn't have details, or maybe he just didn't want to tell me. I stopped asking. By 18, I moved out, got a job at a hardware store, and rented a room in a rundown house with some other guys. I blocked my parents' numbers, cut off my brother Lucas, and tried to forget them. Every now and then, Lucas would send me a random text, a dumb video, or a "what's up," but I never replied. I was done with them. I built my own life, kept my head down, and told myself I didn't need a family who'd ditch me like that. 6 years passed, and I thought I'd moved on. I was 23, working as a mechanic, living in a small apartment in a new town a few hours from where I grew up. I'd made some friends, even dated a little, though I never told anyone the full story about the woods. Then, out of nowhere, my mom, Diane, showed up at my shop. I was under a car, wrench in hand, when my boss called me to the front. I walked out, wiping grease off my hands, and there she was, standing by the counter, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was gray, her eyes red. I didn't recognize her at first, it had been that long. Before I could say anything, she started crying, not just tears but full-on sobbing, like she was falling apart. She reached for me, and I stepped back, my gut telling me to keep my distance. Customers were staring, and I felt my face get hot. I told her to come outside, and she followed, still crying, wiping her face with her jacket. Outside, she tried to talk, but it was all over the place. She kept saying she was sorry, that she'd been looking for me, that she missed me. I crossed my arms and told her to get to the point. I had work to do. She flinched, like I'd yelled, and started rambling about how everything fell apart after they left me. She said Lucas was distant, barely spoke to her, and my dad, Frank, had changed, gotten meaner. She said it wasn't supposed to be like that Frank thought leaving me in the woods would make me tougher, that I'd come back in a day and prove myself. I cut her off, my voice sharp. You left me out there, Mom. For days. You didn't even call. She looked down, tears dripping onto the pavement, and said Frank wouldn't let her, that he was set on teaching me a lesson. She said he'd been raised the same way, his dad dumping him in hard situations to make him a man. I told her that was no excuse, that she could have done something, called the cops, called Ray, anything. She went quiet, just staring at the ground. She started up again, saying she was young, didn't know better, didn't know how to stand up to Frank. I wasn't buying it. Growing up, she'd always act like she was on my side, but when Frank got going, she'd just shrink back and let him run the show. I told her, you chose him over me. You didn't even try to find me. She sobbed harder, saying she'd lost her job, they'd moved to a crummy apartment, and Frank was drinking too much, picking fights. She said she tried to reach out, but Ray wouldn't give her my number. I knew that was a lie. Ray barely talked to me after I left, just sent a Christmas card once. I called her out, and she mumbled something about maybe remembering wrong. I asked what she wanted from me. She said she just wanted to know I was okay, maybe grab a burger, start over. I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was so ridiculous. You think you get to walk back in after 6 years? I said. She cried more, saying she knew she didn't deserve it but wanted to try. I told her I didn't need her, that I'd made it without them. She reached for my hand, and I pulled away. A coworker poked his head out, asking if I was good. I said, yeah, we're done, and walked back inside. She stood out there for a while, then left. That night, I got a text from Lucas. "Mom's a wreck. What did you do?" I didn't answer. After my mom, Diane, showed up at my shop, I thought that'd be the end of it. I figured she'd take the hint and leave me alone. But no, she started blowing up my phone with texts, long, messy messages begging me to talk, saying she couldn't live without me in her life. I blocked her number, but then she started emailing me from different accounts, same sob story every time. It got under my skin, her acting like she could just waltz back in after 6 years of silence. Then it got worse. My phone started lighting up with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old high school buddies, a distant cousin, even my ex-girlfriend from when I was 19. They all said the same thing. "Your mom reached out. She's worried about you. What's going on?" She was tracking down everyone she could think of, trying to guilt me into responding. One day, my boss pulled me aside and said he got a call from her, asking him to tell me to call home. That was it. I was done. I was furious, my blood boiling at her nerve. I didn't want her dragging my new life into her mess. I decided I wasn't just going to sit there and take it. If she wanted to play games, I'd play back, but on my terms. I started digging into what my family had been up to since they left me in Pine Hollow. I'm no detective, but you can learn a lot online if you know where to look. I started with social media. My brother, Lucas, was easy to find. He posted everything, like he was still a kid showing off his life. His page was full of party pics, complaints about his job, and vague quotes about family drama. My dad, Frank, had an account too, but it was mostly him sharing hunting photos and griping about lazy workers or city folks. I noticed he was tagged in posts from a local auto shop he owned, nothing big, just a small garage in a strip mall outside town. I looked up the business online, found its website, and saw it had a few reviews, some okay, some calling Frank rude or pushy. That didn't surprise me. He'd always been the type to talk down to people. I kept digging. The shop's social media page had comments from customers, a few praising Frank's work, but more complaining about overcharges or him arguing with them. I searched his name and found a local news article about a dispute at his shop. Some guy claimed Frank sold him a bad engine and wouldn't refund it. Frank's response was classic, all caps, calling the guy a liar. I could almost hear his voice, same as when he'd yell at me for forgetting to stack the firewood right. I started reaching out to people who'd left bad reviews, keeping it casual, just asking about their experience. Most didn't reply, but one guy said Frank cussed him out over a late payment. Another said Frank tried to charge her double for a simple oil change. I didn't use my real name, just said I was checking out the shop. They weren't shocked when I said I'd heard bad things. I decided to push a little. I left a review on the shop's page, nothing wild, just honest. Had a bad experience, owner was unprofessional, wouldn't recommend. I posted in a local community group, asking if anyone else had issues with Frank's garage. A few people chimed in, sharing their own stories, late repairs, attitude problems. Then I dropped a hint in one post, saying I'd heard the owner once left his own kid stranded in the woods, as a lesson. I didn't say it was me, just something I'd heard. That got people talking. Some called it crazy, others started asking for details. Frank couldn't help himself. He jumped into the comments, firing back, calling people snowflakes, and saying they didn't know hard work. It was like watching him dig his own grave. The more he argued, the more people turned on him. His shop's page started losing likes, and new reviews popped up, worse than before. Meanwhile, my mom kept trying to reach me. She sent a letter to my apartment, don't know how she got the address, saying Frank was losing customers, blaming her for it, and she was scared he'd lose the shop. I didn't reply. Lucas messaged me too, saying mom was falling apart, and I should chill. I told him he could have spoken up back in the woods, but didn't, so he didn't get a say now. He stopped texting after that. I kept the pressure on, sharing my story, not the whole thing, just enough to let people know what kind of guy Frank was. I told a coworker, who told his buddy, and soon folks in town were whispering about it. I wasn't breaking any laws, just telling the truth. If Frank and Diane wanted to act like I didn't exist for 6 years, I'd make sure they couldn't ignore me now. Things started moving fast after I turned the heat up on my dad, Frank. I wasn't trying to ruin him, not exactly, but I wanted him to feel what it's like to lose something, the way I lost my family that day in Pine Hollow. The online posts about his auto shop were picking up steam. People in town were talking, sharing their own gripes about Frank's temper or shady business moves. His shop's reviews tanked, and I heard from a guy I used to know that folks were taking their cars elsewhere. Frank kept fighting back online, posting rants about haters and fake news, but it just made him look worse. I'd check his shop's page late at night, seeing fewer likes, fewer customers. It felt like I was finally hitting back, like he couldn't just brush me off anymore. My mom, Diane, didn't let up either. She kept finding ways to contact me. New email addresses, handwritten notes slipped under my apartment door. One even showed up at the shop, taped to the front window before we opened. She wrote about how Frank was spiraling, how he'd lost half his regulars, how she was staying with her cousin, Linda, because things at home were too tense. She begged me to stop, saying I was tearing them apart. I didn't answer, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't mess with my head. Part of me wondered if I was going too far, But then I'd remember standing in that empty parking lot, watching their truck disappear, and I'd push the guilt down. My brother, Lucas, sent a couple more messages, telling me to back off, that Mom was crying all the time. I told him he had no right to lecture me. He was there when they left me, and he didn't say a word. He went quiet after that. I kept digging, looking for anything that'd show me what my family was really up to. I found Linda's social media, where she posted about family struggles and how she was praying for peace. I saw a comment from Lucas, something about moving out soon, and I figured he was fed up with the chaos too. Then I stumbled on a local forum where someone mentioned Frank getting into a shouting match at a bar, nearly getting arrested. The story checked out. I cross-referenced it with a police blotter online. No charges, just a warning, but it was another crack in his tough guy image. I didn't spread that one myself, but I didn't have to. Word was getting around on its own. I sent a few more messages to people who'd reviewed the shop, asking for details, keeping my name out of it. One guy said he'd worked for Frank and quit because Frank threw a wrench across the garage when he messed up an oil change. That sounded like the dad I knew. I wrote Frank a letter, not an email, but actual paper, mailed to his shop. I laid it all out. How he left me in the woods, how I wandered for days, how I built a life without him. I told him I was making sure people knew who he really was, not because I hated him, but because he needed to face what he did. I didn't expect a reply, and I didn't get one, but a week later, I got a text from a number I didn't know. It said, "You're a disgrace. You'll never amount to nothing." I knew it was Frank, same way he used to talk when I was a kid. I blocked it and kept going. My Uncle Ray called once, saying I was stirring up trouble and should let it go. I told him he didn't get to play peacemaker now, not after he stayed silent all those years. He hung up, and I didn't hear from him again. The more I pushed, the more I felt like I was taking back control, like I wasn't just the kid they left behind anymore. The walls started closing in on my family, and I could feel it even from 100 miles away. Frank's auto shop was bleeding customers, and the local gossip was relentless. I'd check the community group online, and every few days, there'd be a new post, someone saying Frank overcharged them, or how he got in their face over a bad review. He tried to save face, posting about loyal customers and quality work, but nobody was buying it. I heard through an old classmate that the shop was barely staying afloat, that Frank was behind on rent for the strip mall space. I didn't feel bad, not really, but I didn't feel good either. It was like I was watching a train wreck I'd helped start, and I couldn't look away. My mom, Diane, was still trying to get through to me. She'd moved in with her cousin, Linda, full-time, and Linda started messaging me too, saying I was breaking Diane's heart. I didn't reply. Linda wasn't there when I was starving in the woods, so her opinion didn't mean much. Diane sent me a long email, saying Frank was drinking more, picking fights with neighbors, and she was scared he'd do something stupid. She said Lucas had moved out, crashing with a friend, and she felt like she'd lost both her kids. She begged me to meet her, just once, to talk. I didn't answer, but I kept the email. Something about it stuck with me, not because I felt sorry for her, but because it was proof they were unraveling, just like I'd been back then. I kept pushing, but quieter now. I didn't need to post much anymore. Frank was doing a fine job of sinking himself. I'd share my story with anyone who asked, not online but in person, like at the bar with my buddies or at the shop with a customer who knew my hometown. Word spread, and I started getting messages from people I barely remembered, cousins, an old teacher, even a guy who used to live next door. They'd say they heard what Frank did, that it was messed up, but they couldn't believe it. Some asked if I was okay, others just wanted the juicy details. I told them the truth, no sugarcoating. My family left me in Pine Hollow to toughen me up, and I made it out despite them. Most believed me, but a few said I was exaggerating, that no parent would do that. I didn't argue. I knew what happened. Then I got a call from a number I didn't know. I let it go to voicemail, expecting another plea from Mom. But it was Frank. His voice was rough, like he'd been up all night. He started off angry, saying I was a liar, that I was ruining his life. Then he broke, his voice cracking, and he started crying. "I messed up, Ethan," he said. "I thought I was making you strong. I lost the shop, lost everything. I'm sorry. Please, just talk to me." He sounded desperate, not like the guy who'd left me in the woods. I listened to it 3 times, sitting in my apartment, staring at the wall. Part of me wanted to call back, to scream at him, to ask why he thought that was okay. But I didn't. I deleted the message and blocked the number. I wasn't ready to let him off the hook, not after everything. A few days later, Lucas texted me, "Dad's a mess. You happy now?" I didn't reply. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sad either. I just felt done. It's been a few months since Frank's voicemail, and things have gone quiet. His auto shop shut down for good. I saw a post in the local group saying the space was up for lease. People didn't seem surprised, just said Frank had it coming. I heard through a cousin that he's working odd jobs now, fixing cars out of a friend's garage, barely scraping by. My mom, Diane, is still with her cousin, Linda, but Linda's fed up, says Diane's too depressed to help with bills. Lucas got his own place, some cheap apartment with a buddy, and he's working at a warehouse. He doesn't message me anymore, and I don't reach out. The rest of the family's split. Some think I went too far. Others say Frank and Diane got what they deserved. I got a call from an aunt who said I should forgive them, that family's family. I told her family doesn't leave you to starve in the woods, and I hung up. I blocked her after that. I don't talk about it much now. My buddies know the basics, but I keep the details to myself. I'm still at the shop, fixing cars, saving up for a better place. I've got a life, friends, a routine, even a dog I adopted last month, a mutt named Rusty. He's the only one I trust not to bail on me. Sometimes I think about that day in Pine Hollow, how I stood there, watching their truck fade into the distance. I still have that rusty axe tucked in a box in my closet. I look at it now and then, not sure why I keep it. Maybe it's a reminder I survived, that I didn't need them to make it. I don't know if Frank or Diane will try again. Maybe one day Diane will show up at my door, or Frank will send another letter. I don't care. I gave them their chance, and they blew it. I used to think I wanted revenge, but now I realize it wasn't about that. It was about making them see me, really see what they did, and know they can't hurt me anymore. I don't feel empty, but I don't feel full either. I just feel free. People say you can't outrun your past, but I'm not running. I'm standing right here, living my life, and they're the ones who lost something, not me. If there's a lesson in all this, it's that some folks won't own up to their mistakes until they've got nothing left. Even then, it's not always about you. It's about them trying to feel better. I'm not here to fix my family or carry their guilt. I did what I had to do, and I'm okay with it. I don't know what's next, but I know I'll handle it. I've been through worse.